Again, my partner steps aside. And it feels like that to him. And he's gotten used to it. But he's not going to get used to what I'm going to do tonight. So I'm going to use him as an example. A premise that we're going to talk about regarding the human being's ability to talk to themselves in a way that is not linear. And so I want you to clear your minds as we begin this particular channeling. And as I look at you for a moment, in a way you don't expect. There was a time I didn't think this might happen. That sounds funny coming from the other side of the veil, does it not? All of those lifetimes that you've lived, and all that you've been through, all the things that you've suffered from. And at the last possible moment in this lifetime, it gets turned around. I think we've said this before. This was a surprise. A surprise that the consciousness of humanity could turn so quickly, that it would happen during the precession of the equinox, ramp up the 18 years. We didn't expect it. We want to tell you something even before we begin the information, and that is this. It is so new for you that the adjustment into the new energy becomes a rough time. And we know it. You can't go from an old energy to a new one without the transition. You can't flip a switch and say, well, it's okay now. And so there is an adjustment in all parts of you. And the old soul is the one who feels it first. And so the discussion in this channeling, in this evening, with those who can hear my voice, is about the mystery of opening the door. A door that is there so strongly separating you from the corporeal self to the innate. So let's back up a minute. And let's go slow, my partner. Dear ones, we have given information about the 9 energies of the human being, and 3 of them are in one group, 3 of them in another, and 3 in another. You see the 3s everywhere. There is the human group, there is the soul group, there is the support group. We want to talk about the one group tonight, which is the human group. And the 3 energies we have talked about is human consciousness, something called the higher self, and a very mysterious one called innate. Now, last evening, we gave a full disclosure of what innate is. We gave information that was beyond anything we have given before. We've even given it a name. Innate is the second brain. For the first brain is the one that you use in 3D. And that brain has synapse. It has memory. It has logic. It is wired for survival. Innate is another brain that is not logical. It is conceptual. It is not linear. It is dynamically quantum, always changing, always working in a way that you're not used to. And to your perception, You stand in your three-dimensional corporeal body and you ask the question, Dear KRYON, how can I now get through to my cells? How can I talk to my cells? You've talked about all these things, minding the Akash, the bridge to the innate, the smart body versus the logical body, all of these things, and I stand at a door I cannot penetrate. And you'll be right. You'll be right. And now it's time to penetrate it. And so we start the discussion of what it's like, what's needed, and I'm going to use my partner as an example. And he's not going to like it. But I'm going to show you what happened to him and what he experienced because he had to go through the door. Now, right away, you picture a door that will not open. If you could open it, you'd be in touch with your intelligent cellular self, the innate, the one you muscle test to, the one that knows what you're allergic to, the one that knows how you should eat or not eat, the one that knows everything that's going on in your body, even if you don't. We mentioned last night, you could have a raging disease in your body and your brain won't tell you. You'll just cruise along as if nothing has happened, and your brain will only respond with pain. The innate, that is your intelligent body, the second brain, the conceptual one, knows the instant the disease is there. Isn't it odd that you have to muscle test to ask your body about what you're allergic to, perhaps? And your brain won't know. That ought to tell you that there is a shared intelligence in your body. But in 3D, with your DNA working the way it is right now, you are only using the three-dimensional part, the analytical, the intellect. You're using that which computes and sees, stores, and has the memory. It's the survival brain that you're using. And it's been good enough till now. That's what we want to discuss. What are you supposed to do? What's the difference between them? Let's look at that first. The goal is to open the door. You know that. It's not easy. When the entire box of your survival and everything you've ever known doesn't include it, doesn't even know about it, it's mysterious. How do you do it? Let us examine the difference between what we would call the two brains. The one you're used to, we will say, is the intellectual brain. The one that's got you to the place where you are, the one that you can think anything you want to, the one that is scientific, the one that explores the universe with your imagination, all of those things. But there's something it can't do. It cannot get into the conceptual, multidimensional part of your DNA. There is no connection between the human synaptical three-dimensional brain and the innate. There just isn't. That's why you doubt even the things that I might be saying now, but you know there's a smart body. You muscle test it to find out. How do you put them together? The answer is you don't. You acknowledge that there's two, and you acknowledge that one is very different than the other. The intellectual will not be able to think its way through this, for there is no connection. There's no bridge yet between what we would call the two brains. So there would be those who would leave the room trying to think their way through this puzzle, and it isn't going to work. So let's talk about the other brain. This other brain of yours, represented mostly by the innate intelligence of your body and the higher self together, is totally and completely conceptual. There are no linear moving parts. How do you talk to that? How do you work with that? So I'm going to give you some concepts. I'm going to tell you how my partner did it and what he found out. And a couple of things that he had to do in order to get to where he is now. It's interesting that you see a door that you can't open, dear ones. It's really interesting. The first thing I want you to do is to eliminate the door. It's not there, not really. The door seems to be there because your linear brain cannot think about it. So it's a barrier. Doesn't know what to do. It's a barrier. So it becomes a door. It's not. The first step is to eliminate the concept of the door. If the door is missing, everything you want, all the communication that you would like, the concepts of the higher self, the love of God, all of the things that you desire to touch and feel and be, let them show as though there were no door. That's the first step. The innate and the higher self use the tool that is quantum in your body that is least understood, intuition. It is a muscle that we are asking you to start to exercise and use, intuition. Now, some of you already know how to use it in marginal ways. But it is elusive in that it comes and goes quickly. And so what we say to you, because it does that, is trust first intuitive thought. And honor the fact that the first intuitive thought is often the highest communication innate has to you. First intuitive thought. Now, I want you to understand the concept we're about to present. Your higher self is connected to the whole of humanity, all of the souls on the planet. There is a connection. There is a connection of the higher self through the pineal into the other side of the veil. It is part of the whole. Therefore, it sees on a far grander scale than you possibly can. In a linear way, it's perched above you, looking at everything around you, things you cannot see. It is responsible for helping you with synchronicity. It pushes and pulls. Think for a moment. There are those here who only at the last moment had an intuitive flash to come. You know what that's like, don't you? And now you sit in the chair, and now you know why. You needed to be here. You needed to hear the things that were presented in the way they were presented. That's intuition at its best, and you honored it. Even some of you didn't plan on coming to the meeting, came anyway, because someone else had the intuition to invite you. It's the same. This is spirit at its best, working with the human at its best, with a conceptual way. No voices out of the sky, no writing on the wall. It comes into your brain as intuitive thought that's conceptual, so it does not linearize itself, ever. And so it comes as a flash, and it's gone. Second step, learn to recognize intuitive thought. Learn to hold it longer if you can. To stop and analyze what it was if you can. Because you must take the conceptual, intuitive part of your body, which is the innate brain, and work with it with the intellectual brain. And in order to do that, you've got to cognize it. You've got to see for what it is and understand it. It's not easy. It's not easy. Now, some of you have already done it, and you know, and we talked about this last night, and not in a comedic way. You've discovered you can use it in the guise of the parking angel. And honestly, between you and I, you're good at it. You really are. You live in an area where you need it, and you're good at it. And you involve this seeming outside source to find you a parking place because you cannot see the whole lot. And you trust it. And you'll turn left and you'll turn right until the space opens up. And you feel that you have used an energy that is beyond yourself, which you then call the parking angel. But you also understand at the intuitive level, do you not, that you just used your own intuition. Assigning it to an angel makes you feel better. And you know that's accurate. This is what we're talking about. So you do it on a level that is fun, but requires that you listen. And you do it in real time. Nobody tells you in advance where the space is going to be. You do it in real time. And you're so good at it, you'll do it again and again and again, and you'll become even better at it. This is first intuitive thought. Can you do it with your cellular structure? Can you talk to it in a way that my partner had to? He's had to do a number of things in his life that required that he learned intuitive thought and how to linearize the things in his life. I want to show you just one, perhaps two if there's time, and how it was presented to him and what he did with it. When KRYON first came into his life, and I was there, he didn't like it. He didn't like it because we used the innate to talk to him. And the only way we could get his attention was through emotion. Because there's no intellectualizing the love of God. And when he sat in the chair for the first time, he wept. And he didn't know why. He felt he had a whole body experience. He didn't know why. And his intellect got angry. And the anger was because he wasn't prepared for emotion when he didn't authorize it. And the intellect then got in the way. Because the emotion was something that he didn't expect or authorize or even want at the moment, but it came freely to him. We got his attention through his emotional self. That's the innate at its best. And so right away you see the mechanics of how this works. Not through thought, but through concepts, through emotions, through intuition. How do you talk to yourselves? And if you could, what are you going to say? So let's discuss my partner. We're going to give you two examples. I told my partner early on, I said, if you want to, you don't have to grow old as fast. And I want you to teach it. And so here we sit, teaching it. And he said to me, how? And I said, you got to talk to yourselves. And he says, how? That's the question you're asking too, right now. How are you going to open that door? There is no door. So now what's next? And I told him, if you start asking, Spirit is going to give you intuitive flashes that are answers to what you're asking for, and you're going to have to watch for the concepts. And he started getting them. He didn't know what to do with it. It's the first time we've told the story. He's uncomfortable because he wants the story told. It's too simplistic. It shows his weakness. We gave him the picture of a telephone over and over. Over and over. Picture of a telephone. He didn't know what to do with it. You know what he did? He started picking up telephones and listening. How linear. And then he realized, greetings, dear ones. I'm KRYON of Magnetic Service. This communication, the channeling of today, will be a little different. The difference is that you need to hear an overview. I'm going to call it the overview of the future, and yet the very term future is elusive. It's not about the future that is immediate, it's about the future of the planet. This is the kind of channel that my partner has trouble with, because the things that are delivered outside of the purview of his three-dimensional brain. He receives these kinds of messages sometimes in duplicate and triplicate. At the same time he's talking to you, he gets other messages so he can enhance it. This is the best we can do to give a multi-dimensional message to a three-dimensional brain. And so he struggles sometimes. And if it takes place, he'll simply back up and give it again. It's the kind of message that you wish to review and listen to again. It's the kind of message that you might put in a time capsule. The kind that is a human time capsule, so that you might open it and understand it more fully when things have changed. It's not going to be a long channel, but it's going to be one filled with information of the kind that we not necessarily have given before. Pieces and parts of it have been alluded to. We want to paint a picture of a bigger picture. My partner talks about the shift, I talk about the shift. My partner is giving lectures on what is next. But his lectures are the pablum to what is next. But he gives it to a humanity that goes step by step and only begins to move into new areas of understanding as they examine the old ones and try to decipher what could be different. And it's slow. But that's where it begins. And if I could, I would preface all of this by telling you that what is going on Earth at this moment, we have seen before. Dear ones, if you could compare the galaxy and all of the planets that have gone through this before as a school, this would be the graduation of the first step. And as we have looked at what has taken place in this galaxy with others before you, we know what's coming. Because the steps that are next for you are the same steps that were taken before. What you describe as human consciousness isn't. It's consciousness. It only belongs to the human because you're human. It's the same kind of thing. Energy. The attributes and the confluences of the energies are almost identical to the consciousness that the other planets have gone through. And the reason is because life is similar. Some almost identical from planet to planet to planet, because the galaxy is made up of fractals. From the smallest to the largest, you're going to see repetitive parts of the same thing. It's a beautiful system. And what it means is it gives rise on other planets. One, perhaps right now, that's just getting life, the building blocks of DNA, getting ready to be seeded by you in the future. DNA. Same kind as you have, the same amino acid structures as you have, is common to all. So we've seen this before. You're a young civilization, dear one, a young. So young it's hard to even give you a perspective of how young. Your civilization hasn't even been around the galaxy one time yet. Hardly. The almost 200 million years that it takes to go around one time, one rev. There are societies and civilizations that have been around 3 revs. The Pleiadians, half a rev. To tell you how old some life is in this galaxy, way before you. Some of them visit you. None of them are able to influence you to the degree that you can influence yourselves. Galaxy teems with life, and you're well hidden, by the way. We've seen this before. I want to tell you a bigger picture. Your youth and how young you are starts to explain why the earth has been through such a horrendous time. Civilization looks ugly to you. Your past and your history filled with survival and killing, weaponry, mass destruction, no elegance of thought for life, torture. They all went through that. They all did. Because civilization builds itself as your children build themselves as a metaphor through life. There comes a time, and we've said it before, where a child becomes self-aware and the ego takes over and all they think of is themselves and survival. On the playground at school, some of them become bullies just to survive. Some of them never get over it. And they're bullies as adults because they never moved into the elegance of the wisdom that you have. As you grow up, there becomes a knowledge and a wisdom that occurs to you that there's a better way to solve problems through listening and cooperation. You have to survive. But the children don't know that. And they will flail, and generation after generation, you bring up children and they'll do the same thing, and they'll go through the terrible 2s and the thrashing 3s and the teenage years, and it's over, and hopefully they'll grow up. And if I could be so simplistic to apply this to human civilization, let me do it. You're still on the playground. You're still pushing each other around. You're still getting reactions. You're still in survival. Until about 20 years ago, 30 years ago, even 50, where it started to shift just a little. We have told you over and over, I'm not going to visit it again, what the timetable was, what the calendar said, why I'm here. No, I want to go further than that in this particular channel. I want to talk to you about energy not seen. We're going to talk about this in 2 places in this channel, and this is the first. Energy not seen. There is a complement of energy in the galaxy that interests you, and you can't see it. But you want to. Because it touches you in ways that are fascinating. This unseen energy is responsible for what the New Agers sense first. You're able to pick up energy in someone's aura somehow, some way. A medical intuitive can actually feel what is wrong. The aura broadcasts sickness, health, joy. What is that? Wouldn't you like to bottle it and take it home and analyze it, and you can't? The very institute that puts this event on, so interested in these energies, unseen energies that make a difference. What is it a reader reads, or a psychic feels, or a futurist can futurize? Where does it come from? Why is it so elusive? And I'm going to tell you in just a moment a little bit more about this. For it's the key to the future. A child would not know about the elegance of wisdom, how to put things together instead of tearing them apart. A child who is ego-driven, who is only waking up to being self-aware, is only going to do what the child does. The only equipment the child has in its very elementary way is going to lash out in certain ways and do certain things. And if you gave them a plate of wisdom, they'd look at it and they'd have no idea what it was and throw it away. This is all about to change. Because this unseen energy has attributes you don't know anything about, and you're discovering. First of all, everything about this unseen energy, which we call the quantum consciousness of humanity, is starting to enhance itself so that it'll be a little more obvious. If I took you to another civilization, like the Pleiadian, like the Orion, the Arcturian, if I took you to any of those, you would not recognize anything. First of all, they don't have technology. How about that? Because physical things that do things, they threw away long ago when they realized that the physics of human consciousness could do everything they ever wanted. That's where it's going. And you still wonder what it is. Truly, what is this? How does it work? Is it quantitative? If you have more of it, does it do more things? And the answer is no. Now, we have given you some hints about it. Human consciousness has no succinct definition I could give you that would make any sense at all. Because we have told you that less than 1%, 0.5% of humanity has to awaken in a certain way to affect the entire planet. Now that ought to tell you it's not quantitative. It's not 3D, is it? Less than 0.5%. If you really want to know the numbers, if you need the numbers, that ought to tell you something. It's not about how many of you there are, dear ones. It really isn't. Because there is something hiding here. There is a system, a confluence of systems that you don't know anything about. So let's talk about them. Now, this is not going to be understandable to all of you. That is why you're going to listen to this again if you choose, and others will put it in a time capsule if they choose, and these things may very well pop up later, and you'll go, oh. How do you explain the internet to somebody who's never seen a computer? Where do you begin? How do you explain the elegance of a race car to somebody who hasn't invented a wheel yet? And this is the issue. How do I tell you about what you have no concept of and you're not ready to know because you got to walk through the steps? So let me give you some building blocks and some metaphors. There's something called a wisdom barrier. The wisdom barrier is what we have described as what happens in human consciousness when certain attributes occur that are not quantitative. That is to say, it's not about how many. It's about other things that will occur within the physics of consciousness that you don't know yet anything about this system, that must occur in a certain way. In a distributed way, not a centralized way, in order to break this barrier called the wisdom barrier. And when it is broken, what it tells us is that humanity has passed a point where it is in survival mode and goes to a mode that starts to build the wisdom of getting along. The wisdom that enhances the brains of all humanity to a point where they can agree on something that they never even knew before without actually having it taught. Did you hear that? Now, you didn't expect that. It surrounds the human being in such a way and the civilization in such a way that when you're born, it becomes second nature. The wisdom of getting along. It's called the wisdom barrier. And let me tell you what's happening. You're there. And it's not going to give you fireworks or sparks in the sky. There's not going to be a celebration. There's not going to be balloons. Except on my side of the veil. And there's all of those. Because you're there. You're looking into the very essence of it. You are peeking into what makes it work. You're about to push the envelope that will affect all humanity. Not just the light workers, not just the old souls. You're about to push a button on physics you didn't know existed. Now this is a biggie. The missing piece. How do I explain this? My partner, go very slow. Humanity explains things only from what they know, not what they don't know. Here's an example. You look into space, science looks into space, and they find attributes they cannot explain that do not seem to be Newtonian. But Newtonian physics is the gold standard of motion everywhere. And so the human being struggles to find formulas that will put the unexplained into Newtonian boxes. Welcome to dark matter. You're going to laugh later. And we have told you this before, but this is the human propensity. Take what is known, observe what is unknown but there, and place it into the boxes of the known. Even if they're convoluted, even if they don't make sense, even if they're mysterious. Instead of looking and saying, maybe, just maybe, there are missing laws of physics we don't know about that would explain this and that and this and that. Well, let me tell you one of the biggest places that you're missing. The place of the physics of consciousness. Listen to me. How do you define consciousness? Well, it's developed through a very special thought of humans and this and that. No, it isn't. Consciousness is physics, and you should get used to this. You are developing it through human thought, unaware that there are rules of consciousness, and it is a part of quantum physics. There are rules, there are postulates, there are beautiful attributes of the physics of consciousness that are going to start to explain what's going to happen in the future, but you don't see it that way. The missing piece is the knowledge that you can track this, that you can plot it, you can create it, even outside of humanity. Did you know that? It's beautiful, because when I start to tell you some of the attributes of the physics of consciousness, you're going to go, oh. What are the attributes of physics? What do you know? The answer is actually very little, but what you do know, you experiment with, you create things. The very technology that you have that is so beautiful on this planet is brought to you by the knowledge of the physics that you know. And there's cause and reaction. You build this and this happens. You put together certain kinds of things, and through all of the principles and the rules that you understand and the 4 basic laws that you have out of 6, you know what they are and you're using them. Beautiful. Now, what if I told you that that same scenario exists in consciousness? There are laws of consciousness that are just like the laws of physics, in that there's causal, there's effect. But in a quantum world, they're not linear. And so they create certain kinds of things. The physics of consciousness, being quantum and not linear, creates attributes that are going to create the future of this planet. And now, my partner, it gets hard. Because I'm showing my partner things right now, and he can't verbalize this. So I'm going to say, do your best. He sees the emotion of it. And he goes, oh, if you knew the physics of consciousness, you can build a better world. It has attributes. First of all, it does not travel from place to place. It does not travel in a straight direction. It does not travel. Consciousness is not in one place going to another. Consciousness does not expand. It does not get bigger or smaller. Consciousness is. Consciousness of physics, just like attributes of physics, sit there ready to be enhanced or not based upon other laws around it. And when they're applied, then they all change. Consciousness. Let me tell you about a couple of them. One is called the benevolence factor. Did you know that as the physics of consciousness is explored and the wisdom factor is applied and the barrier is passed, what happens next is an exponential understanding and application of the rules of consciousness that create a factor which generates benevolent action. Oh, that's convoluted, my partner. Can you say that better? Let me tell you this way. Right now on this planet, there's a struggle between forces. Because of the consciousness that you have developed here, and the rules that you have put in place through the physics of consciousness, there's an allowance right now of many things on this planet that we've never talked about. Is there evil on the planet? Yep. Are there entities dedicated to come in and mess with you? Yes. Is that shocking? And why is that? And why would that be? Because this test allows it. Because what you have created in the physics of consciousness and the rules that have applied and how you're using it allow it. But the next step past the wisdom barrier enhances those very patterns of consciousness that you're going to discover as part of physics that close the door. Did you get that? When the rules of physics are applied in certain situations, you can control what happens. It's the same in consciousness. When you reach a point of understanding the physics of consciousness, how it works, the mechanics of it, the distribution of it. Listen, I'm giving my partner something and he's going to say it and it's not going to make sense to anything. The spiral delivery of it. Now that's going to make sense to somebody. You shut the door. And the things that have visited this planet can't anymore. And those places of darkness that would want to come in and play with your consciousness because it's at the teenage level of physics can't get in. That's the best explanation we have for what is going to happen in the future. And the Pleiadians are jumping up and down because they know what happened. It's almost an exponential evolution if you want it to be. One thing leads to another. It builds on itself. You don't have to start all over every single time you're born, like my partner described today. You come in with the factors that you learned before and build upon them. If I could use a term, born wise, I would. And it's going to change everything. And then when the physics is revealed, you'll understand why there are machines that can work with consciousness. But you're not going to need them. Not long. How many generations are required, KRYON? I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you. The reason is I don't want to give you a setup that'll spoil the party. Because every single planet has had its own time cycle of the delivery of this through their own free choice. How does it work? How fast does it work? When will it start? It's already started. You are at the wisdom barrier. Once you are at the wisdom barrier, I would like to tell you that the track record of all the planets who have reached the wisdom barrier are the same. They all move forward. Every single one. You threw a switch. And no amount of dark energy can stop it. Oh, it'll try. I told you that before. Humans invested in old ways. Like the kids on the playground who don't want to grow up. They'll flail. They'll bully until their last breath. But they will awaken in a world, and they haven't got a chance to do it again. And this is what we're talking about. The benevolent factor, the wisdom barrier, these things start to work in the laws of the consciousness of physics in ways that you will indeed figure out. creating increased DNA percentage activation, creating generation after generation, eventually, I won't tell you how long, of a human being who can create things out of nothing, who have control over physics, which is a lower kind of physics. The highest kind of physics is consciousness. And consciousness physics can control 3D physics any day. I'll wrap this up by telling you all of you are going to be there to see it. All of you. Every single one. Because that is the plan, old soul. You come back and you enter a world that you always wished you could have. Peace on earth? Oh, that's easy. That's the beginning. That's planting the seeds. That's a given. Look at your news. It's not going to look like it, is it? That's just today. Peace on earth. That's not the goal. Hardly. That's just a given. When you grow up and you're an adult, you stop throwing stones at each other on the playground. You stop. You have a more elegant idea. That's peace on earth. That's the beginning. The very beginning. And then it gets good. This is what we see. I've never said these things in this way. I wanted you to hear the full story. What would happen to a civilization that could create anything it wanted physically, was never hungry, who could live as long as they wanted to, could put themselves in a quantum state if they wanted to, who had different sets of ideas of the way things should work, who had no central control? Did you hear that? Have you ever heard of a managerless corporation? It's like that. And you would say, oh, that can't work. Oh, yes, it can. That's what you're headed for. Government decentralized to where there is none. There will be no such thing as world government, dear ones. Instead, there will be world consciousness agreement. You'll know better. How about that? What happens to a group of adults who go to a party for the first time and they've never met each other? What do? Throw rocks at each other? No, there's a consciousness of the party. They get together. They talk to each other. They have fun. What about a planet that had just that? They're born into a situation where they know better. That's the wisdom factor. That's the barrier you're crossing. It allows you to throw away any other system you ever thought you needed, especially the ones that organize you into groups to do things. It will be second nature. You'll all know together. Too good to be true? Ask a Pleiadian. Ask those from Orion. Ask those from Arcturus. Ask any planet of free choice, because they're all looking at you right now. This room is filled with them. And they're nodding their heads and say, right on, right on, right on. You just wait. You'll be there. And so it is.
I'm just so thrilled to be here because we are building such a beautiful energy this year that's unlike anything else. Thank goodness, right? Woof. So as we begin to receive the information that Lee is giving and the information that KRYON is giving, know that it's because of you. It's because of you, our family, that we're here. And we're here together. So let's just give a few moments to coming into the present, into your body, into the chair, into the room, into the consciousness of love and the entourage that surrounds us and honors us in our human journey here. And we're grateful. And we're hopeful. So just take a breath down into your heart center and just feel that soften and open. Feeling the emergence of something beautiful that's being created here together this weekend. Something sacred. Something magnificent that you each add to in your own way, that begins to create a ripple of love and a ripple of healing that goes out from your center, from your heart. The love coming in and the love going out. Experiencing, receiving, and giving, and being honored for being who you are, right where you are.
Greetings, dear ones. I am KRYON of Magnetic Service. My partner may tell you this, but I am always with him. There's no preparation for channeling, for I am always with him. As soon as he steps aside, I can give you what this is, which is a concentrated message. However, he doesn't have to step aside for me to come through him. Now, this particular process is a microcosm of the reality that we are speaking of for the human soul. There is a divinity which is alive and well in all of you, and some of you actually call it duality, and it isn't. Duality is simply the description of the dark and the light complements of your consciousness, not God inside. When you start to open the door, you share the energy in your consciousness with the divine. You share it. And some will see divine coming through you as you look into their eyes and you speak to them, especially in times that are profoundly sorrowful or perhaps healing or joyful and laughing. And you'll wonder sometimes what they have and where did they get it. It's channeling. Channeling's description is not what you see and hear today. This is an old method that someday will disappear. The idea of a human being sitting in a chair and giving you divine information, which you then write down and walk away more informed, is a very old style of learning. And what it's moving more to will be that which is intuitive every day. You will wake up with the same messages I give you today. Old souls as a group will have the same energies, the same directives. There will be points on the earth that will hook up metaphysically and energetically into patterns that represent sacred geometry. And in a way, you're building a sacred grid of energy between civilizations that are very different. And although it is esoteric, the civilization patterns will eventually create peace on earth. For you are hooking together the God parts of humanity. That shouldn't sound that strange. Beautiful it is, new it is, and these grids are just beginning. Now my partner is going to speak of 3 grids that exist today that you know about that are esoteric, and some other things that are going on the planet. All that is about human consciousness. But there's going to be more. It is very, very slow. And here you sit. You either feel it or you don't. So I want to ask the question, really, why are you here? Now you may say, well, I was interested and my friend came and took me in. Is that it? Is there a possibility that it's not an accident? I want you to feel the energy today. Dear ones, it may be the only time you're in a channeling meeting. It's not something you would never normally do, or sometimes you'd always do it, but I want you to listen. The energy right now and today is benevolent and loving. And it always will be. You do not have a vengeful, judging God. That came from the Greeks, where their gods were even dysfunctional like humans. The divine source that created you is pure love. And that pure love extends to you and your soul and everything you are. And you can sit and be bathed in this and believe it, or you can object and walk away. Beautiful how free choice works with the individual. It is not going to be put upon you. You have to believe it. You have to hold out your hand. You come to the place where you want a drink of water, and you can stand there forever with the water all around you, and you'll die of thirst until somehow you find the glass or the container and dip down and get your drink. God is all around you. And you can sit and die in sorrow and grief if you wish. Or you can hold out your hand and say, show me. And that is the invitation that even the engineer in the chair shared. For he was in total disbelief until he gave permission and said, if you're there, show me. And he meant it. It wasn't a curiosity. It was pure intent. This is what is being asked of humanity. Now, as an old soul, you might say, well, I've been on my path for a very long time. Yes, but, and in all beauty and benevolence, we ask you, is it the new path? Or is it the one you've always been on? Are you open for new suggestions? Suggestions that might change the way you are operating your divinity on the planet, what you think, and how things work. Is it different than what you've practiced? The new tools are here, and they have been 2 years in the making. 2013 was so unusual we did not even count it as a year. We count years from 2012. And 2013 was not year one. 2014 was. That's how long it took just to make the initial adjustment and begin this new energy. Dear ones, it's going to last a long time. And for some of you, that may be disappointing. But from our perspective, the old soul who is sitting here will always be here to enjoy it forever. You may look a little different, but you're going to be here. For what you do for the planet is reincarnate the energy of who you are into a grander vessel of young wisdom. And that's where it's going for you. But it starts now. All of the things that I have told you about are starting to coalesce to a fulcrum of energy. Now listen to me. This year, 2015, It may not look that way to you, but it is a stellar year of things coming together. Mostly for old souls, there will be balance. 2015. It is an abundant year for wisdom, health, understanding. If you do the numerology, it makes sense. The abundance will be that you have asked for: peace, understanding, compassion, health where it's appropriate, and it is appropriate. The energy to proceed on the course that you knew you belonged to. Listen to that. It's not going to be on hold anymore. You're going to start proceeding to what you've always known you were here for. And it could put you in an area that you don't expect if you allow it and not stuck to it. Being stuck to it means you think you know what's going to happen, and that's all you will accept, instead of being wide open to what really might be there. Relationships solidified. Families starting to understand instead of separate. All of these things, the old soul is going to feel first. Dear ones, I want you to start feeling refreshed. The shift is starting to settle. From 2012 till now, this is how long it took. 2 years. The 2 is duality. That's how long it took, literally, for the light and the dark to start settling in you. Cellular, spiritual, health, even that which you call reality was adjusted. It's different for each one of you. Some of you felt it profoundly, some of you subtly. But old soul, all of you felt it. It's good news. I have a message this evening. And the message will finally cull together and come together in a message called "This is Not Your Father's New Age." And we will present some items in a clearer way altogether that we have hinted at for the last 2 years. I know who's here. Some of you have said, I was excited to come. Some of you didn't sleep. I want to give you some insight. There is no one more excited than I am that the entourage comes with me to know there really is an awakening going on. And it's about time. And so it is.